Welcome everybody. My name is Markus Vähälä from Kukunori. Welcome to the coffee break. Today we are talking about systems and complexity together with Dora Hietavirta. Welcome to the coffee break. I'm so glad that you're here with us today.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here.
And Elizabeth, welcome to the coffee break as well. So I'm from Helsinki, Finland, working in Kukunori around themes like well-being, and we work with a lot of people on the streets, in prisons, in digital domain, with people and for people and by people with mental health background, disabilities, different kind of obstacles in life. And one of the key elements in everything that we do is guided functional peer support. And I feel this kind of peer support models, they are quite effective because like this group here, we are peers in that sense that we can learn from each other and we can explore things together without the boundaries of organizations and things that usually bound us. And I'm ready to learn about systems and complexity today and to raise interesting questions that somehow lead the way to the future, because mingling in the system thinkers scene, I feel that the non-governmental organizations, non-profits here in Finland and elsewhere, we could join forces and perhaps make more good things together, and also perhaps learn to map them out and learn from that data, and also perhaps create impact. So for that we could share our knowledge that is there some good stories around that today. How about you, Dora? Why are you here? What is the question that's in your mind around systems and complexity?
Okay, so my background is quite multidisciplinary, right? So I studied economics, then I studied community development, a bit of sociology, then I went into the learning sciences and was all along like involved in nonprofit management in different capacities. So for me, having a kind of a look at things from very diverse perspectives was always kind of present, and I see the benefit of it. And when I found Systems Change Finland, it was like, oh great, there are other people like thinking like me, which was really good to connect to. And of course, it was getting into more into the theory behind it and whatnot. And obviously, I'm still learning a lot. Like it hasn't been a very long journey on that road, but I have picked up things obviously along the way, and it's kind of definitely helping me to understand things differently, and then of course that relates to how you act and how you think of your own role in doing things. So yeah, that's kind of my little story here. How about you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I'm a doctoral candidate at Aalto University. So I'm actually also here in Finland, and I'm focused on circular economy, but I'm also interested in systems. So how to bring systems thinking into business school, business research, working on some sort of early projects on that with my colleagues. So I'm looking forward to hearing how people use systems thinking concepts in practice outside of the research world. So very, very much looking forward to this conversation.
Great.
Welcome, Gunta. Good morning and
Good
welcome.
morning.
Nice to meet you, and welcome to talk about systems thinkings and all things related. Gunta, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your background in system thinking? Are you pro or are you beginner?
It's a tricky question. I think there is not such a very good definition of pros because even about the system thinking itself, there are so different views and definitions and areas actually. But what is my background and how I started was that I met Mikael Seppala, that if Elizabeth doesn't know, he had been organizing systems, I think systems innovation for systems change or something like that, already some 4 years ago or so, and then actually it was when I learned about the concept, but as a way of thinking, I would say that this approach to things was mine already for long time. So I really felt it's my thing, and then we started to do different events and so on, and I even got myself much deeper into this when we decided to organize a course of visual methods in systems thinking, and then I read very interesting book and other materials to prepare for this. So we did these first courses together with Mikael and Helen from Systems Change Finland, and later we started association where Dora is as well. So it was last autumn, and so it's nice to be with people who are there, and there are even more projects. Like one we also had been doing with Dora was this trying to understand systems trafficking in Finland, trying to do systems map and so. And another project where I am also trying to apply it, actually for now officially ended, this project Open Doors and Minds for international employment for problems that are there in Finland. But there are lots of things, but I also am learning, and this practical application is thing that I think is more needed, because theories are lots and lots and lots, but if we get really see how it works and get successful projects, I think it's what we all need the most. Yeah, so that's about me.
Thank you, Gunta. I feel appreciated to be with you today, because I'm sort of like hovering around the system thinking world, sort of trying to grasp something here from here and there to link that to the reality, like Elizabeth mentioned, sort of like practical realities around systems thinking, because we are working with not only in Finland, but in other countries with minorities that, for example, cannot reach academic world in that way. So I would like to have this kind of systems thinking or systems learning tools for all kind of idea that, and I feel that the Systems Change Finland is a very good community to do that, because it links people around these themes, and a lot of ideas and project ideas are emerging, linking that to getting something done, as for example Kukunori works at the metro stations now with people with personal experience in substance abuse. And so being there close to the people and linking that to the benefits in the well-being of, for example, feeling of safety in Helsinki or something like that. I think we have all the elements out there, but linking the systems thinkers to system doers to the NGO field. In our case, Kukunori consists of 43 Finnish NGOs. Few of them very large. For example, the Central of Mental Health Association includes 200 local NGOs. So I'm thinking about that. Who and what are the organizations working to make the systems change here in Finland? And actually, Gunta mentioned Mikael Seppälä. Hope Mikael, you're listening to us, because you're the one that started these coffee breaks working with me here in Kukunori, the Propeller Heads project, where we modeled 43 practical experiments around well-being and culture, and all of them can be copied for free in innoculat.fi. And one of the tools in systems thinking is to create meeting points like this, where people can reflect to each other and learn from each other. And Mikael taught me about a very practical project linking systems thinking to well-being. So I'll share my screen for a moment. It was facilitated by Dark Matter Labs, and they worked in Stockholm around the concept of mental health. And the project is called Mind Shift. And in this Mind Shift project, they were, of course, mapping out the doers, mapping out the themes, mapping out the needs, mapping out the solutions that various organizations and individuals provided. Also linking them into greater concepts like city design and how people are meeting, how people are meeting each other and raising these questions. And they could, through this project, change a little bit of the paradigm around mental health, in that sense that it was first seen in Stockholm as a problem, a thing that takes money, and they twisted it around as a fundamental asset for future business. After San Francisco, I believe Stockholm is the second city bringing in startup that growing into the billion-dollar club. So they are now investing sort of strategically to create Stockholm a place where people can think safely, freely, and also cultivate business around it. I'm not into that business side, but I'm there actually bringing together all the people working around mental health, and I would like to see that happen here in Helsinki as well.
Maybe we could just show something, especially for those who are maybe watching later and might not be that familiar with the systems world just yet. Like, what is it that might make a difference when you're talking about shifting the mindset, right? So if I just quickly share just a couple slides. I guess I should get rid of this. Where is it visible, the speakers? No, it's only yeah, okay. So yeah, this is an interesting one that is pretty much the basis for doing systems work. That when you look at things differently, then the things themselves change. If you look at problems as problems, and you switch around, and you see possibilities, and just going down that route, and how systems thinking, when people become more familiar with that, how it differs from conventional way of thinking. And perhaps one of for me, the most important ones is actually this understanding that we are part of the problem. If we want to solve a problem, we have to recognize that we are the ones who are unwittingly creating them, and that today's events and today's happenings are results of past decisions. So we need to go back to understanding that, like, who were the ones and why did they decide to do things the way they did, so that the relationships that they created contributed to what we have at the moment. Unless we understand the past of the system and the behavior of the system, we are unlikely to be able to change it. So that's just one I think one important thing for understanding. And then if we are talking about problems, like what are the differences when we talk about complexity and complex issues, in the systems where we talk about clock problems and cloud problems often, and the difference between them and how we approach trying to solve these problems. And the problem arises, the actual problem arises when we choose the wrong method, so that we try to fix something that needs healing, and we try to heal something that could be fixed. And of course, it's down to resource allocation and how the time, the effort, and financial resources, etc. And how we deal with them. And then there's a nice complexity spectrum here that kind of, for NGOs, it's quite relevant. Like, how do they decide where to put their resources, and what is relevant for them to do? Because there is, of course, urgent need needs to be somehow targeted and provide solutions. The example that is given at the bottom is about homelessness. So obviously you want to do things for people who are on the streets at the moment, but then if you are not addressing the underlying issues, it will obviously keep coming back. So when we are moving from this quick fix to a more systemic approach, when we are addressing, as Marcus was saying in the case there in Sweden, that you are affecting the underlying patterns, the power relationships, incentives, structures, and narratives, then the whole idea shifts, and the solution space grows. You can come up with more and more ideas of how to impact that. But of course, not all NGOs or businesses or whatever or local governments or central governments are equipped to do that. So that's why quite often we talk about these networks and ecosystems, right? Where their actions are aligned towards a certain outcome, but they take different roles within that ecosystem to try to solve that problem sustainably. Yeah, I just wanted to share that quickly. Does that resonate? Do you see that happening in your work? Do you see that there is an understanding around you?
I see it every day in my work. A lot of the social and health related problems, they have these themes around it, that we are in the middle of project world, where we are having this kind of silver bullet projects that start and end, and after that a similar project starts and ends, and no learning is done in between. And people come and people go, and nobody actually cares about the impact. And all the impact is reduced into budget, so like how much money is going here and there, but not to the actual questions that do we feel more well-being or less well-being or different kind of well-being, or are we confident in leading our lives and being an active citizen in the society. And I think there's sort of like people feel that there's the missing leadership, and working in several fields. I'm also into politics now because I want to change everything on different levels. So I'm learning also what is actually the so-called democratic place where we decide things, and see that they are missing data. They are not leading with data. They are just taking something, because at least in a municipal level where I'm active, there's so little time to do that. People are volunteering basically to lead the city. But in these decisions, you have, of course, you can ask questions from the officials, but basically it's up to you to get that relevant data and then try to convince everybody else that perhaps we could think differently or do differently, and somehow the temporal things are also linking here, that the decisions are made at a point where you cannot actually influence anything that has the thing has started already 3 years ago. So I would be happy just to sort of have relevant data about the city, for example, that could be open to everybody, so I could try to understand and then influence in right spots in several different ways.
What kind of data would you like to have?
Who is deciding what kind of resources are used to do what? For example, in the municipalities don't count NGOs at all as in their sort of city plan. They only count something that's in their budget. So this is a sort of basic systemic thing. Like in Stockholm, they mapped out all the resources available, and all the different themes affecting that concept of mental health. And usually in municipalities, this is a social and health problem. Well, it's not. Basically, for example, economic things are related to mental health. That's why I'm promoting universal basic income and this kind of approaches where this wouldn't be a problem anymore. So
it's exactly where you should try to, I don't know which player or who, but start to create this systems map, and that is what you are saying, this actors stakeholders map. But of course the question is the data, or in a way when we are doing, then we are trying to get, but you need to interview, you need to be connected with all these institutions, and actually it's quite a lot of work, and as you said, if there are volunteers, then it's not always easy maybe to get even in touch, though I think that maybe in your position you could be in a good place that people talk to you. When we did trafficking project, like we tried to approach government, and they even didn't want, they saw that they know everything and they don't need to talk with anybody else from outside. But yeah, that the systems map of actors is one of extremely important to understand all these connections.
You're totally correct, Gunta. It's all about money and power. So if you're in systems world, you're like having a conversation and creating partnership, but you cannot sort of rule over other people and other organizations. So that's why it's much more easier to, hey, let's just stick to what we are doing. We have our budget. Let's go. But to tackle the challenges of our time, we need to perhaps have more conversations about, hey, let's at least talk about what are the areas and avenues where we can collaborate, and at least perhaps collect some relevant data around it. And for that, Kukunori has developed the POCCA assessment tool that's now being used in 476 organizations, Elizabeth, just to let you know.
It's POCCA, you said, or what?
Yeah, it's free for Finnish NGOs working in the field of health and well-being. And that's the tricky way, sort of creating technology creates an opportunity to talk about the issues that you're collecting. So that's because the clever way that we created POCCA is that it allows people, so anybody, a volunteer activist in an NGO, to create easy questionnaires, go there, and because the questionnaires are fixed, so they point out to the relevant databases related to that theme. So you're collecting for yourself, for your NGOs, for your area, for that theme, and eventually for Finland. So you can quickly show to the funders that, hey, this is working and this is not, this is something that we need to change. But everybody working here, so now we have a huge amount of people collecting data into this huge data bank, and you can then see what is working and what is not. Of course, we need to develop that further, and technology in a way doesn't help, because now there's needs of, hey, explain this data to me. And so there's new jobs also emerging in the systems field. And who is that? Elizabeth, is it you that you are training people to do work like this? Where can people go to have courses and
well, there are
something to
some
put on
in
a CV?
Aalto on systems thinking, and hopefully there will eventually be more, but at least there's a few different systems courses, so point them in Aalto. There's at least something they could maybe, although I'm not sure if there's any in the Open University or if they're only for degree students. That I don't know. But Marcus, I had a question. You mentioned that in the NGO world, it's very project-based, like your Silver Bullet project and then your next Silver Bullet project. And I'm curious if there's been any efforts to try to bring in systems mindsets sort of in that context of like getting out of the project by project sort of mind, or has it, because it sounds like the system side is mostly in like the impact and kind of like the outward facing efforts, but I'm curious on kind of the internal organizational learning, if there's been any efforts to bring in systems thinking to break out of this like project by project mindset.
Well, actually, you are in it. Sort of. So this coffee break is part of the Propeller Heads project that was there to create new kind of platforms where people can meet. So on Facebook we have the Uteliaiden kehittäjien vertaisverkosto, the peer group of curious developers, because we sort of 4 years ago we thought that, hey, the organizations don't do anything. They don't actually have power and they don't have a will to change. Yeah. So let's work with those people that want to change, sort of the change agents. So let's collect them together and let's sort of do something together. And in that sense, that has worked. But Elizabeth, it's about money and power. So nobody wants to collaborate because you lose some of it to somebody. Nobody wants to. It's my party, and we have done it for 30 years. So shut up and continue. But I think that the relevant key question is there, that the funding have to change. So the funding these portfolios, where actually it's not about the organizations, it's about the change for the better, for example, in mental health or inclusion. So it would force people to collaborate.
Yeah, it is an existential question, isn't it? Because if there are, for example, a homeless shelter director, if the incentive is that they get funding based on how many beds they fill every day, then they will make sure they fill those beds every day. So definitely there needs to be an understanding of this incentive structure and all the people who are working on certain issues. And while I think it's really important for people to think about themselves first, like, am I really in it for my own gain, or am I in it for making things better in general for others? And that's an interesting one. When I met the systems change like community, there a lot of times I bumped into this saying that systems change starts with the self. So if people are not willing to change their ways of thinking and doing and behaving, is it likely that some kind of change comes, in the work they do? So I'm wondering if there is enough effort put into that phase when people actually have to talk about themselves. The organizations have to talk about themselves and think about themselves and why and what they are doing. Because it's really nice to have, missions and vision statements and the rest of it. But does it really translate, to everyday actions?
How is it in Aalto University?
I mean, there are efforts to bring in these sort of systems, but it's, I mean, I guess with anything, there's, sort of traditional, well, incentive structures are sort of an issue because, in academia in general, it depends on the field, but, it's very much like publication driven or getting in these sort of top publications with these old mindsets. So it's sort of breaking in new thinking has layers of sort of hoops you need to jump through to sort of build a career, but also then try to bring in new thinking because it's, much more straightforward to, publish in the top journals that have sort of the old ways of thinking and do the old things. And that all trickles down into the teaching. So it's not just like an ivory tower problem, it trickles down into what we know and what we teach to the students. And there's sort of efforts in sort of broadly in sort of business schools and in academia to sort of bring in these more interdisciplinary mindsets and the systems thinking. So I'm hoping that these things will start to shift, especially because, motivated by these existential issues like climate change and inequality. I think there's starting to, be an understanding that we need new mindsets, we need new ways of thinking. Whether the incentive structures change in time is another question, but at least it feels like it's kind of this sort of crossroads point, sort of more generally in the field, but let's see.
Hey, Anna.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
We're talking today, Anna, about systems and complexity. What do you think about it?
Well, I find it very interesting, but I'm totally new. This is my first time to be joining you, and so I was just interested actually hearing you talking.
It's great to have you with us, and we are also learning these things as we go, so you didn't miss anything. We were talking about how systems thinking is now showing up in reality, and how organizations might change or benefit from systems thinking. And Elisabeth, today I learned a new idea, reading from the morning paper, that education doesn't change the culture, it reflects the culture. Sort of like perhaps what is the university of systems? I don't know, but do you have, Gunta, do you know any good benchmarks around the world? Who is leading in this, or are there some education or organizations?
Well, education is maybe a little bit different. I can't say as education as such for this reason, but there, for example, if we talk about the systems innovation, where we started also to cooperate with the London hub, and they have quite a lot of developed into that sense, and there is really great materials if somebody gets more interested, and then in Australia they are doing in government at least things, and of course the community around it. So in that sense, I would say that more learnings and practical also. By the way, also about homelessness, they did in UK projects and these things. So these would be maybe places where to look for. And now the hubs are opening in many other cities around the world, at systems innovation, at least that we are aware of. I don't say that there are not other things, but like Berlin and Mexico and of course Helsinki was first and the biggest one, so we can be proud of it. But these things are so one place to look at, but it's not easy. And I think on mass scale, of course, it's a question how it's perceived and how let's say organizations or bigger masses are doing. But one thought that popped up when you talked about the previous thing, it was actually for myself a new neither discovery nor idea, but thought. I would say that when there was a new article, one person posted on LinkedIn, and it had been quite like reasonable and very logical and nicely written. But I thought that when you publish this thing and it only is addressed to that small circle of people that are listening to you, and second thing, even if these people maybe whom you reach, they are looking at it, it's not really necessary that they would even try to understand. And then I thought that in all our systems thinking, as well as maybe other things, but systems thinking was first that came to my mind, that if we don't find, we talk about mindset and so on, but the general culture of listening and being able to get into dialogue, that we are not all standing on our own just whichever things we have in our mind, and we even don't want to listen anybody else. And we reach the culture that people are able to at least try to listen what the other is saying, and if there is some grain of truth, and try to get to dialogue, then we might get much wider maybe reach and also any of these systems change and so on, further things when we can talk with people. But as long as we live in our own bubbles, that is extremely hard to get any further. So that is a question maybe for systems thinker to start.
Anna, I would be curious to hear a bit about you. Like, what is it that you do and where, and what got your interest in this event specifically?
Okay, now. Well, my background is that I have worked in development aid, and so I have worked abroad for a few years, and then I got back home to Finland, and then I wanted to study, and I wanted to, so now I'm finishing my degree in adult education at the University of Helsinki. So now I'm hoping to work in HR, but then because of my international experience, so I always felt that when I was working in these projects, I looked at the holistic way, even if it wasn't my role. So then I felt that when we made some decisions, so that hang on a second, did we consider this and this? So then I was thinking that I have a little bit this tendency to think systematically and take into consideration the whole system. So then I noticed you on Facebook. So I have been following these groups for a while. So then now I saw this event this morning, and I thought that I just want to come and hear you. But yeah, and then during my studies in adult education, I have focused on courses on developing organizations. It's a developmental work research. So then that is based on Yrjö Engeström, a professor, and there is the baseline is on, or the basis is on activity theory. And when I have been looking at what Yrjö Engeström has done, so it has taken a holistic and systemic approach on developing organizations. So then when I also discovered these theories, I really felt like home. So then I just, I was interested to hear you guys, and I want to learn more on systems theory.
What kind of questions do you have in your mind? Like, you know, what is it that directs either your research or your studies?
So now I'm actually looking at my master's thesis. I'm looking at multidisciplinary group work or collaboration. And I'm using a relational agency, theory on relational agency on that. But then, so I think I don't know even what to ask, because I guess I would like to know that where you apply systems theories. But on the other hand, I don't want to divert your discussion.
I know it's a free-flowing discussion, so
okay.
just anything.
So actually, I don't even have one single question because I'm so new.
No, one thing you can think about, you probably, I mean, it's maybe a bit obvious with the multidisciplinary teamwork, but really the basics of how people understand each other across disciplines is so important. We've had some projects in Aalto on this, and really, like, we had one where we really went down to basics, like literally an engineer and a business, like how do you actually speak to each other, and what words do you use, and how do you phrase your questions, and what assumptions do you start with? I mean, I think the more that can be learned, or sort of tools to deal with that, you know, it's very recommend starting there.
Great.
Yeah.
I have really liked it, my topic. And I also, during my work in development aid, I really discovered that it was sometimes so frustrating that and also interesting that people from different backgrounds and different professions, we had really difficulties to understand each other. And then, but when we found the common understanding, so it was so satisfying and really great. So that's, yeah, I'm happy that my topic resonates with you.
Yeah. Do you know what you'll be studying, or do you have a case yet, or out of curiosity?
Yes, there is a team and a project that we have been following with my professor. Yeah.
Anna, last week I attended a workshop that I found through Systems Change Finland. So it's a great source of hopping into the tables where you're not invited. So I went to the OECD meeting where OECD researchers were telling Finland what they are good for and what they are not. So I was the only outsider in outside the ministries there. So waving our flag there that, hey, remember that there's a scene around this thing. And the OECD researchers said that, hey, you're doing a great work, but what about the diversity of your development teams? So they said that if you want to go further into developing things, you need to diversify the way you're doing and the people you're working with. And that's something that perhaps Kukunori, where we are working with all sorts of people all the time, could be at hand. But there was a nice thinking, Marco, see you later. So they don't have their coffee breaks where we can go and mingle and meet each other. But I will find a way and let you know. So everybody should join Systems Change Finland for the best resources for hopping into new tables. Because I like you said, Elisabeth, sort of talking with these treasury people there, valtiovarainministeriö. So that you could use systems theories and systems thinking to see that conversation. Okay, they are talking about the same things, but using these terms here, for example. And then I always use the strategy. So they were waving their strategies and missions. And then, hey, look, you want to go into that direction. You can't go there alone. You can't reach these nice. Okay. Yes. You're totally correct. But
that is an interesting one, because it is quite hard to engage, right? There are no spaces and no time for really reaching out and engaging with a diverse community, like as Gunta was referring to a bit earlier with our attempt at mapping human trafficking in Finland. And obviously we have a limited understanding of the situation, so we were trying to reach out, and in some cases we were successful. People did respond and had a look and, oh yeah, that makes sense. But then in a lot of cases, of course, the topic itself is kind of sensitive, and legal issues and whatnot come into it. But it is hard to establish connections. So unless you already have someone on the inside of wherever you want to go, be it local government or central government or foundations or these grant organizations, it's hard, because you don't have a name, you don't have, who are you? Why do you want to talk to us? So that kind of power imbalance and all those hoops and jumps and loops and things that people would need to get through to even engage people in discussions. And I'm wondering if you have any ideas of how to make that happen, like how to do it from the outside, right? Like, because some people have the power to make decisions, some people have the possibility to share resources in a certain way. Now, how to get in touch with them?
I just have one little note. It's not the answer, but it is comment, again, outsiders comment, that in Finnish society, it's like very strong historically belief in authority, and people are very law obedient. So those who are in these roles very often think that their opinion should be, if somebody is questioning it, it's not good. And so this is what one reason that creates in a way this power imbalance as well. It's in culture and way of thinking. Maybe Markus could correct me or comment or something on it, but it is one thing that somehow it's not maybe as easy to address, but at least if we know what is behind it, then could we start from there?
You're totally correct, Gunta. There's a history behind it, and there's a culture created. So as an association of well-being and culture, so we could approach and research that what is happening at the same times. And now I think that the way things are organized in the Finnish society and the people are sort of there's an imbalance there. So people are now wishing for something like this coffee break, this kind of other ways to do their work, as it were. So who will decide that how to reorganize things? And one of our friends working in the tax department, one of the popular heads there, they are sort of like, we are like secret agents there, changing the structures, that how things are done, without caring how things are sort of organized or led and but of course, like Dora mentioned, that there are people making decisions, but of course, as systems thinkers, we would like to have better decisions and to create them based on something. And as you know, Gunta, sometimes they are just made because somebody needs to make them, and they don't. There is no sort of quality assurance in that sense that says that, hey, have you checked these 10 things before you made that decision? So there's a lot of things to be done, and I believe in this kind of projects where we as peers, for example, we would now start something to work together. The whole setup would be sort of better to make that happen than hopping into an organization that has hierarchies and has this kind of culture of doing it so we can negotiate, like Dora mentioned, that a lot of these systems is about communication and having time for that, and that leads into the budgeting and sort of like where you put your efforts to. What do you think, Dora? Have you found out that's still in system thinking, people are sort of relying on the previous culture of mechanical projects?
It is interesting. I was just listening to a podcast yesterday about two people talking about complexity, just musing about things like myths and things. And somebody there one of them was saying that actually systems change work is a practice of rule breaking. And I think it is. And I think we need to think about, what are the rules that are limiting, and what are the rules that are making sense, and what are the rules that are easy to change, and what are the rules that we can circumvent, and what are the rules, whether it's rules about organizing ourselves in terms of democratic organization, or whether it is about how we make decisions about our own life, where we put effort and time, and how we prioritize things. So what is allowed, and kind of working on those boundaries, like shaping them in a way that fits better to what we would like to do. So not as you, Marcus, were referring to, that in organizations there are people who are kind of trying to be something and do something, change things differently. But we can also do that in our own lives, like just questioning of our own motives in a way that, yeah, this is important. I'd rather do that than what I'm asked to do, or whatever. If you can see those connections, and you can stay kind of if you can keep that integrity, of who you are, and then it makes easier to actually act out those rule breaking actions. So because that it's based in a value system, and it's based in something that is important. So probably that gives some kind of a self-assurance that yes, you are doing the right thing, even though others tell you that it's not. I think that's also an important aspect.
Which podcast was that you were listening to?
It's run by a guy named Tyson Junkaporta. He is an Aboriginal from Australia and wrote this book. Okay, I really recommend. But I can put a link, perhaps.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Later on. So I continue. I will search for the link then.
Yeah. I think that was a really good. Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Just to mention that that we have 4 minutes left. That everybody should check out Systems Change Finland, and if you're interested in systems change, please join us. And there's a website, systemschange.fi, where you can find more information. But if you Google around the terms around systems, you can find a lot of communities around the world. And nowadays it's easy to collaborate digitally and locally and thematically, and that's we are living very interesting times. I attended a innovation portfolio training arranged by Sitra, was it 2 years ago, and there were people from European Union, from United Nations, and they were saying, Markus, I'm here as a coach or educator, but actually we are all learning this as we go. So some of these things are so new that it's very exciting to be part of this community, thinking about this and sharing good stories around the world. I would like to thank Dora so much of headlining today's conversation. I would like to Thank you, Anna, Elisabeth, and Gunta also. I would like to continue these discussions later on, and one opportunity for us is the 17th of November, when we are having our next coffee break, and then the theme will be business collaboration with NGOs and fundraising, a topic that's hot at the moment at the NGO field, when the ministries are reorganizing their strategies to fund Finnish NGOs. So thank you so much for attending this coffee break, and have a great week. And remember that you can watch these sessions later on from Kukunori YouTube channel, and of course on our own Facebook group. So please join Uteliaiden kehittäjien vertaisverkosto on Facebook and Systems Change Finland group, and like the pages as well. See you later, and bye-bye.
Have a nice rest of the week.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.